Watch this mini pastry, and it's completely vegan. You can eat it on your Patron Saint Day, and you can eat it any other day too. You can't eat it as a diet. And this isn't exactly a healthy food channel. I'm starting the recipe by activating the yeast. We put 30 grams of fresh yeast or 8 to 10 grams of dry yeast into a bowl. We add 1 tablespoon of flour and 1 tablespoon of sugar. Then we pour in 200 milliliters of warm water. We mix it well like this and leave it to sit for about 10 minutes so the yeast can activate. While we're waiting for the yeast to activate, we measure out 800 grams of all-purpose flour, add 1 tablespoon of salt, and mix everything together. Then we pour in 200 milliliters of lukewarm to warm water, 50 milliliters of oil, and the activated yeast. We gently mix this whole mixture with a spoon. When there aren't many wet ingredients left, we scrape everything off the spoon and knead the dough by hand. We knead until we pick up all the ingredients from the bowl. When everything almost comes together and the dough starts sticking again, we pour in 20 milliliters of oil, flip it over and continue kneading. Once it's kneaded, we pat it lightly with our hand. Cover it with a cloth and leave it to rest for 15 minutes. After 15 minutes, we knead it again. We won't knead it for long, maybe just a minute or two, and then we'll leave it to rise again. Since the dough is coated with oil, it won't stick to your hands. If it does stick, add a little oil to the dough or your hands. And that's it. I brush the top with a little oil so the dough doesn't dry out. I cover it with a cloth and leave it to rest for 30 to 60 minutes. Once the dough has risen, we place it on the counter. I'll knead it a little here, not too much, and divide it into 3 parts. I'll shape each piece into a ball. Don't shape them too long or the dough will become firm again. If that happens, just let the dough rest a little longer shaped as balls. It will relax. I leave the dough balls to rest just long enough for the margarine to soften. I soften 200 grams of margarine and set it aside. Now I'll take 1 piece of dough at a time. Press it down lightly by hand and with a little flour. I'll spread it slightly with my hands first, and then roll it out with a rolling pin. And then just a bit more on this side, like this. Up and down. I'll sprinkle a little flour on this half and fold it over. Now this quarter, and put it aside like this. I sprinkled flour so it doesn't stick. And now I repeat the rolling process. Now I'll take the first dough. And you're probably wondering why I didn't leave the one that was already here. This first dough softened a bit. When we press it, knead it, and roll it out, it becomes a little tough and harder to work with. When we let it rest a bit and the gluten relaxes, the dough becomes softer and easier to work with. We roll out this first piece of dough as thin as possible. Something like this. This is roughly a 50-centimeter diameter. We spread half of the softened margarine. We take the second piece of dough. Stretch it a little in the center by hand. And place it in the middle. Then stretch its edges over the first layer. I pressed it a bit with my hand so it sticks to the margarine. And now I'll put the remaining margarine onto this second layer. Repeating the same process with this dough. I join the edges, press the middle so it sticks, sprinkle a little flour, and press it a bit more like this. Then I flip the dough. Sprinkle this side as well. Spread it out and roll it again. I roll it slowly so the margarine doesn't spill out. You can also put the dough in the fridge for 10 to 15 minutes so the margarine firms up, if that makes it easier for you. Push the dough slightly to one side so that part becomes thicker. Then roll from the middle upward and from the middle downward. So you stretch the corners as much as possible. You can flip the dough occasionally, so it stretches evenly on both sides. The length of the dough, in this case its height vertically, is the width of your baking tray. And the width you roll out as thin as you can. Once rolled out, divide the dough into 6 to 8 strips. Whether you make 6 or 8 is up to you. I'll make 6 because it's simpler for me. If you make 8, the pastries will be smaller. I arrange each strip like this, leaving a little space between them, so if I need to spread them a bit more by hand, I have room. Now let's make the filling. For the filling, I use 300 to 400 grams of marinated mushrooms. That's 2 pouches or 1 can. And I add 200 grams of vegan Trappist cheese. To bind everything, I'll add some hot ketchup. You can use Ivar instead of ketchup, but I'm making something like a pizza filling, so that's why I'm adding ketchup. And a teaspoon of oregano. The mixture must be thick. Whatever you decide to add, make sure the mixture is compact so it doesn't have excess moisture, otherwise it leaks out and opens the pastry. This is the thickness you want to achieve. We put a bit of filling onto each strip of dough. Once we add the filling, we close the pastry. You simply connect both sides. If there's a little extra dough, you can trim it. We line a large baking tray with parchment paper and transfer the dough inside. If it's a little longer, it doesn't matter. Just press it lightly and tap it into place. And that's it. Then take a knife or anything sharp and cut mini bites. You choose the size. I always cut everything in half, then again in half, and so on. Now I'm thinking whether to make 3 or 2 cuts. It'll be 3 since these are mini pastries. I leave the sliced pastry for 30 minutes to rise. Once it has rested, we brush it with vegan mayonnaise. You can sprinkle with seeds if you want. We preheat the oven to 200 degrees Celsius and bake the fasting mini pastry. And here it is. Our perfect mini pastry is baked. Baking time is 30 minutes. When you take it out of the oven, you can brush it with leftover margarine. Let me show you what it looks like. This pastry is so soft and juicy, you can make it for any occasion.